Trans women do not have a physical advantage athletically compared to cisgender women. These studies are being suppressed in America because of the transphobia of the Orange regime. And this goes much deeper than just sports. So let's talk about this. This is an article from The Advocate. It says transgender women athletes do not have an inherent advantage over cisgender competitors, according to a new study. That's what advocates of trans inclusion have been saying for years, while anti-trans forces have been saying the opposite. Now, a report in the British Journal of Sports Medicine, which its authors call the most comprehensive synthesis to date, counters the idea of inherent advantage. The report affirms what advocates of inclusion have said for years. And Republicans are not just saying the opposite. They've been denying all the valid research, studies, expert opinions, statistics, everything. It's more than just athletic fairness and more about whether trans people deserve everyday things that everyone else is allowed to do. They don't just deny the science and facts of trans athletes, but they deny the reality of gender identity altogether and decades of research on this. They're denying all the trained experts, and they are manufacturing public outrage. I've had people tell me that there are more important things going on than for trans people than athletics. And that's why I also make content for other high priority attacks. But we have to recognize that discriminating against us, dehumanizing us, publicly lying about the community, it all plays into a much larger attack on the trans American population, which is to slowly deny us basic rights, basic freedoms, basic things that other people benefit from to have a happy, healthy life. And we are banned and treated as if we don't exist because they don't want us to exist. The effort is a genocide of trans Americans, and sports is only a small part of this giant wave of attacks. It's important to also look at these attacks as a bigger picture. Things that bring trans people joy are a priority too, because the insinuation is that trans people don't deserve to be happy. Therefore, we are miserable people. But that's just not true. Trans people, we are resilient. We are self-aware. We are survivors of things most Americans will never, ever have to experience in their life. And contrary to what Republicans believe, we also have happiness and joy in our lives. So now, a report in the British Journal of Sports Medicine, which its authors call the most comprehensive synthesis to date, counters the idea of inherent advantage. The authors, which were all based at academic and medical institutions in Brazil, looked at 52 different studies with about 6,500 participants. So this is a wide-scale study. They ranged in age from 14 to 41. 45 of the studies focused on adults and 7 were on youth. Since the authors were reviewing existing studies and not doing new research, their report is what's known as a meta-analysis. While current evidence is low and varies in quality, it does not support theories of inherent athletic advantages for transgender women over cisgender women, the authors wrote. Empirical evidence challenges initial concerns that transgender women would dominate women's sports, largely due to the physiological effects of testosterone suppression therapy, they noted. In fact, trans women remained underrepresented in elite athletics, highlighting the lack of dominance by trans athletes in practice. So, in other words, the fear that trans women are taking over women's sports isn't even true. Trans college athletes are only 0.002% of all college athletes. So in the entire country, there's estimated to be between 5 and 10 trans athletes on the collegiate level. And in total, there's over 500,000. So we're almost non-existent. Trans Olympians are even more rare. No trans person has ever won a medal in the Olympics. And the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, is currently planning to enforce stricter rules on the qualifications of female trans athletes, making it nearly impossible for trans women to qualify unless they've transitioned before puberty. Even though the science says trans women who transition at any age will have the same body as a cis woman after only a year, even 3 years at the most. Trans women had higher absolute lean body mass than cis women, the authors found, but there were no significant differences in physical fitness metrics, such as upper body strength, lower body strength, and maximum oxygen consumption after the trans women underwent 1 to 3 years of gender-affirming hormone therapy. Because of differences in the studies, the researchers cannot establish direct correlations between muscle mass and functional strength. And again, I want to talk about my own personal experience going on HRT, hormone replacement therapy. I was not sure what to expect at the beginning when I started my transition, because I had heard that if you transition later in life that you might not get as drastic of results. But after only about 3 months, my body was drastically changing already. Things became harder for me physically in my job when I would exercise. I was an avid runner. Running got a lot harder for me. I have overuse injuries from my job, and those injuries got worse. So I had to retrain my body after these changes because I now have the body composition of a cisgender woman in terms of fat, muscle, and strength. And I have purely estrogen in my body and no testosterone now. And I remember looking down at my legs and seeing that all of the musculature was leaving. I had a lot of bruising when that happened. So I know for a fact that this drastically changes your body. And I also went down an entire shoe size. Doctors had told me this won't change the size of your feet or hands. And I had many trans friends that told me, no, your feet will shrink. And indeed they did, an entire shoe size. So anyway, if you know anyone who is not educated on this, feel free to send them this video. And like this video, leave your comments, subscribe if you want to stay updated on important news like this. I'll be back very soon. Ta-ta.